Life can be unpredictable. Sometimes, danger hides where you least expect it, behind quiet streets, in abandoned houses, or even in someone you think you can trust. These are true stories of fear, terror, and survival. Each event I'm about to share will take you into moments where ordinary life collided with unimaginable horror. Brace yourself. Midnight in theAZ. Get start *. When I was 15, I had my first girlfriend, Casey. We lived in a peaceful upper-class neighborhood. Streetlights cast long shadows on the sidewalks, and most nights, the streets were completely empty. Casey lived just 2 blocks away, so I would often walk to her house after school, sometimes late into the night. One Thursday evening, during a break with nothing to do, I started walking toward her house. The air was cool, the streets silent, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. But soon, I noticed strange noises behind me. At first, it was just the faint rustling of bushes. I looked back quickly, but saw nothing. My pace quickened, but the sound followed a twig snapping, soft footsteps. I could feel someone was there, watching, but every time I turned, the street appeared empty. By the time I reached Casey's driveway, I was on edge. I called her, explaining how uneasy I felt. She appeared at her window and waved, asking, "Who's that guy behind you?" My blood ran cold. I turned to see a fully grown man crouched, following me just 10 feet behind. Panic surged through me. I screamed and ran to the door, pounding with all my strength. The man grabbed me briefly before letting go and disappearing into the night. Casey's mom opened the door, letting me in, calling the police. That night, I stayed at Casey's house, too terrified to go home. I stayed in Casey's house that night, my heart pounding so loudly I thought the walls would echo it back. Every shadow in her room seemed to move. The wind rattled the windows, sounding eerily like footsteps on the empty street outside. I lay on the couch, trying to calm my breathing, but every creak in the old house made me jump. I kept imagining that man lurking somewhere nearby, waiting for me to leave. The next morning, the neighborhood seemed normal, almost peaceful. Birds chirped, and sunlight streamed through the trees. But I knew the fear from last night hadn't disappeared. I avoided looking out the windows and took a longer route to school, hoping the man wouldn't be waiting. For days, I checked over my shoulder at every turn. I slept with the lights on and made sure doors were locked, but sleep didn't come easily. Every noise, banging doors, falling leaves, distant voices made my pulse spike. A week later, I tried to resume a normal life. I started walking to Casey's house again, but slowly, cautiously, always glancing behind me. That night, I noticed a shadow lingering across the street. My heart froze. It wasn't fully human, or maybe it was just distorted in the darkness, but it moved unnaturally. I sprinted to Casey's house and didn't stop until I was inside. That week, I realized the fear wasn't just about one man, it was the idea that danger could be hiding anywhere, in any street, behind any tree. Over the following months, strange events began to accumulate. One night, at home, I heard my front door creak open while I was in my room. I froze. The house was supposed to be empty. I could hear soft footsteps approaching my bedroom. I grabbed the first thing I could find, a heavy bookhand, clutched it in my hands. A shadow passed across my doorway, then disappeared. My mind raced. Was it the same man, someone else, or just my imagination? Weeks later, my neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, told me a story that made my blood run cold. She said that, years ago, someone had been watching the neighborhood at night, following teenagers home. Some disappeared for days, some were attacked. I had dismissed it as an old cautionary tale, but now I understood it wasn't just a story. The fear that had been gnawing at me was real. Then came the storm. I remember it clearly. Heavy rain poured, lightning flashed across the sky, and the wind howled like it was alive. I was alone in the house, watching TV, when I heard a monstrous bang at the window. Someone was outside. I approached, slowly, heart racing. The figure shouted for help, claiming they were hurt. I was terrified but curious. I called out, but the voice was rough, insistent, and not someone I knew. Then I realized that the figure wasn't alone. Shadows moved in the rain, and I saw multiple people approaching. My adrenaline surged. I grabbed my phone and hid in the bathroom until the storm passed and the cops arrived. From that night onward, I became hyper-aware, walking down streets. Even in daylight, my eyes scanned every shadow. Every sound became suspicious. The world had changed for me. I couldn't shake the feeling that danger was always nearby. Months passed, but incidents kept happening. A figure following me at night, strange knocks on doors, glimpses of faces in windows that disappeared when I looked closer. Each event compounded my anxiety, my life slowly consumed by fear and paranoia. I realized that surviving wasn't just about running from danger, it was about noticing the signs, trusting instincts, and preparing for the unexpected. And then, one night, I faced something far worse than a single man on the street. It was a series of events, each one more terrifying than the last. Shadowy figures watching, whispers in empty rooms, and the feeling of being hunted. I had to navigate the streets, the alleys, the abandoned areas near my home, constantly alert. It felt like a game I couldn't win, a nightmare I couldn't wake from. Even now, years later, I remember the fear vividly. Every late-night sound, every movement in the shadows, triggers memories of that terrifying period. I learned that fear is not just a feeling, it's a presence, a companion that follows you until you confront it, until you survive it, and until you remember that you made it through. Even after those terrifying months passed, life never returned to what I would call normal. I couldn't walk alone at night without checking behind me every few steps. My sleep was restless, punctuated by sudden jolts awake at imagined sounds. Shadows in corners of rooms seemed to move, whispering secrets I couldn't hear. One evening, I decided to confront my fear directly. I returned to the streets where the first man had followed me. The moon was full, clouds drifting slowly across its face, and the neighborhood was quiet, too quiet. Each step I took seemed amplified, echoing off walls and empty driveways, and then I saw a shadow in the distance, crouched like the first man, but this time it felt different, more calculated, more aware of me. I tried to call out, but my voice caught in my throat. My phone, which I had clutched tightly, slipped from my hand. The shadow moved closer. My instincts screamed at me to run, yet something compelled me to stay and watch. That night stretched into hours, each minute a lifetime of anticipation and dread. From that moment onward, I realized that fear had evolved, wasn't just a reaction to danger, it had become a lens through which I saw the world. Every small sound, every flicker of movement, every unexpected visitor became a potential threat, but with it came an unusual clarity. I noticed things others overlooked, patterns in the behavior of strangers, subtle changes in the environment, small details that hinted at danger before it arrived. Over the years, I started documenting my experiences, keeping a journal of incidents, strange sounds, and fleeting shadows. Each entry became more detailed, recounting the precise sequence of events, the smells, the sounds, and the emotions. Reading these journals now, I realized just how much the fear had shaped me, not into someone paranoid, but into someone acutely aware, someone capable of noticing the unnoticed. Then came a series of encounters that tested me further. On one rainy night, I heard a knock at my door. The sound was deliberate, measured. I peeked through the peephole but saw nothing, just wet footprints leading away. That same night, I found messages scrawled on my window in condensation. Single words, cryptic phrases like watching or next. My pulse raced, but I remained silent, observing, noting patterns. Months later, I encountered someone who claimed to have witnessed the same figure I had been followed by years ago. They described it exactly: crouched, silent, observing, vanishing into darkness before anyone could react. The realization that I wasn't alone in experiencing this terror was chilling, yet oddly comforting. It meant there was a method to the madness, a presence moving through the shadows, but one that followed rules, patterns I could begin to understand. Fear had transformed from a passive feeling into an active companion, guiding me, teaching me vigilance. I started exploring abandoned buildings, empty streets, and dark alleys. Each expedition testing my nerves, sharpening my senses. Each encounter, each whisper in the dark, became a lesson in survival, endurance, and perception. And through all of this, one truth became clear: the mind can magnify fear into monsters, or it can channel that fear into awareness, strength, and resilience. I learned to respect the shadows, to anticipate the unknown, and to confront fear directly instead of fleeing. Even now, years later, I walk the streets with a quiet awareness. Shadows still move, whispers still linger, and sometimes, in the corner of my eye, I glimpse something that shouldn't be there, But I no longer panic. I observe, I note, I endure, because I survived. And in surviving, I learned that fear is not just an enemy, it's a teacher, a companion, and sometimes the key to understanding the world's hidden darkness.